Greetings. A number of people had asked me about Brexit prior to the decision being made and afterwards. And in the past, I've given my opinion on Brexit and the EU, so most people know it. Of course, I was, as an outsider, in favor of Brexit. I think the UK should leave. There are a number of reasons why. I can enumerate them again. And overall, I think the EU has become pretty dysfunctional. But that is, of course, a perspective that comes mostly from a detached point of view. On a personal level, as a Hungarian, Brexit was bad, bad as a precedent, and I'll get into that in a bit. And the dissolution of the EU is sort of bad on a personal level. And there's a distinction between the bigger picture outside of the individual, my own individual interest, and the individual interest I have as myself, what's beneficial to me as an individual. It's no bit of irony, well, I suppose it is, that on the day of Brexit, the day of the Brexit results, I found out that I'm not only getting a major rent hike, but I'm having a long-term eviction notice, which means that somewhere within a year's time or so, I have to leave the premises. So it was kind of my own little Brexit going on the same day. It's just a strange coincidence, I suppose. But it really got me thinking about a number of things. Now, as I said, I have favored Brexit. There's a number of reasons. One of the reasons, as much as I can't stand democracy, a bunch of idiots, mobs and sports coats voting, the EU Commission has never really respected democratic decisions. They rejected the referendums that had taken place in places like the Netherlands and Ireland and France with regards to the so-called Lisbon Treaty or the EU Constitution. So that's a basic reason. The more important reason, I think, overall is Europeans don't really get along. I mean, there's all this crap. I was watching the speech by Boris Johnson recently, just after the results. And, we're still European. No, the British were never really European. They never really, they intervened in Europe, but they're not very European. And Europeans, by and large, in the best case scenario, have tolerated each other. And the worst case, they've slaughtered each other. Europeans don't really like each other much. They tolerate each other. And I suspect that's going to be kind of the scenario going forward. There'll be a whole lot more suspicion, and people will just, not sort of tolerate each other. There's going to be fallout from this. Even though I favor Brexit on the sort of grander political scale, there will be fallout on a number of levels. So at the end of the day, it comes down to really just the EU as a concept, for me at least, not working. Disparate countries. I was listening to a live stream of an alt-right channel, and it was packed, lots of people, unusual. And apart from the usual rhetoric you respect, like white victory and all this stuff, but the amount of kind of vitriol being spewed at Poles and Hungarians. I was a bit surprised, actually. I didn't know that, and as you know, I'm Hungarian, I'm Eastern European. There was that degree of, and I'll get into that a bit more, of dislike. So it just kind of sows the seeds of intolerance. If people can't get along, they can't get along. I would say, yeah, Britain does belong to the Brits, but the definition of British will possibly change, and more to come in a short moment. As to say, there might not only be in England and Wales in the not too distant future. But it just doesn't work. Europeans are too different. And this is, of course, the irony in the alt-right as well, that the white race. No, Europeans don't even like each other very much. So there's that, white or not. But yeah, this is a good thing. I think overall, long term, it's probably going to be better for the British economy. I should point out, though, that most of the worst problems in the UK have relatively little to do with disgusting Eastern Europeans such as myself, infesting the economy there. It has a lot more to do with homegrown Muslims of Pakistani origin, majoritarily, and similar places. Rotherham, that had nothing to do with filthy Eastern Europeans, for example. I don't think this is going to solve some of the worst problems that the UK faces in terms of immigration, which is, say, the worst kind of immigration, most Eastern Europeans, at least the countries I've heard mentioned, like Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Poland, they don't go there as welfare tourists. They go there to work. And I did watch a video by Tildir, and he has the numbers, and he's worked it out. So it probably isn't a net benefit overall, but it probably doesn't cause nearly as much harm as some guy from North Africa or some guy from Pakistan who's raping little kids and talking about Allah's snack bar. So the issues that Britain will face in the future with regards to immigration will be a lot more difficult. And let's not forget, there are plenty of British-born Muslims. That all is outside the jurisdiction of the EU. Now, before I go into some of the nitty-gritty details of what this means for the UK, in my view, when I say on a personal level, the Brexit decision hurts me, is that this is causing a cascade. Marine Le Pen has called for a referendum for France. Geert Wilders in Netherlands, and I suspect this is going to be a domino effect throughout Western Europe, and indeed in Southern Europe, places like Greece that want to default on on their debt and just build, basically build back from the ground up. Spain, which has been in economic turmoil for a long time. As on a personal level, this affects me because this is going to set a precedent, and with the dissolution of the EU comes the dissolution of EU labor mobility and just general mobility. The fact that I can live and work in Germany without going through laborious visa processes, etc. I'm not saying that justifies the existence of the EU. Listen to me carefully. I actually favor the dissolution of the EU. It just comes at a rather terrible cost to myself and other disgusting, filthy Eastern Europeans. So moving forward, the fact that I'm going to be evicted in a year or so, I don't know if you actually want to call that eviction, but it basically is I have to leave then. I'm going to have to leave Germany. I mean, obviously the EU is not going to be dissolved immediately. It's going to take some time. It's going to even take time in the UK to get things, probably 2 years or so, to really get the house in order to kick out the people that need to be kicked out or whatever. I really have two options for myself: is to either go back to the US, which an option I highly disfavor, or go to the other place of origin, Hungary, and try to build a life there. And at the end of the day, that actually might be wiser, despite the enormous costs of moving and all this other stuff. It is cheaper to live there. So we'll see. That's on my own sort of personal front. There's just sort of this irony that isn't escaping me today, that the day of the Brexit results are my own Brexit results, basically, unintended. Now, with regards to Britain, I think we're going to actually in the future see just an England and the Wales kind of style of the United Kingdom. People in Scotland voted for Remain, that they voted to remain, as did the people in Northern Ireland majoritarily. Many Scottish people have gone on record. If the UK says, we're leaving, we're out of the Union. And interestingly enough, I think even more interesting, you have a person in the case of Northern Ireland, Martin McGuinness, Sinn Féin. He's a representative of Sinn Féin, the former terrorist organization looking for Northern Irish independence, calling for a united Ireland, at least in regards to the border, which I think is something reasonable. The prospects of a united Ireland, I've always supported Sinn Féin, actually, not their terrorism, but I mean, I'm not someone to harp on about colonialism, but let's be honest, Ireland was the only really effectively colonized country in Europe in recent centuries. They had their language more or less destroyed, their culture more or less destroyed. There are other issues. There were potato blights and famines, but the fact of the matter is I think Ireland ideally should be united, and I would actually personally, as an outsider, wish for Northern Ireland to leave. Scotland, I'm kind of more on the fence about, though I do think the Scottish will to leave the Union is much greater. And so I do think there's a possibility in the future of a united kingdom composed only of Wales and England. I don't think Wales would leave. I mean, they don't have the power to do so. But we could just see a cascade effect across all of Western Europe. Ireland might hold a referendum. And this could be the beginning of the end for the EU. In fact, I suspect it is. It will take a while. You have about 5 years, and the EU will be very, very different to the extent that it still exists. And then you look at places like Eastern Europe. Well, by and large, because they're poor countries, they benefit a lot more. But it won't, leaving the EU really won't kill Eastern Europeans. We'll just have to go back to our filthy homelands. So that's not that big a deal. And in my case, since I work from home and earn primarily USD, I think it's workable. But we'll have to see sometime down the line. But this is a good thing, I think, overall politically, because Europeans don't like each other. They never really have liked each other. And it's only bred more resentment towards different Europeans of different nationalities and cultures. And of all the countries allegedly in Europe, England is the least European, I think. They really have nothing to do with Europe. Yeah, they've intervened and what have you, but their culture has far more in common with the United States, understandably, or Australia, or the former colonies, and in some cases the Commonwealth. So this is a good decision forward. I'm not sure how the whole sorting, EU members is going to work out. I mean, it's going to be pretty complicated. You can't instantly kick out millions of European nationals, even if it becomes effectively the rule that you need to have a visa. There's going to be massive bureaucracy. And the other thing is, and I guess this is something that pro-Brexit people don't really care about, but there are plenty of British nationals abroad in Europe that are going to have to face the same consequences. There could be some retributive action on the part of the European Union. I mean, who knows? Nobody expected this exact result. I was a bit skeptical that they would even allow it to happen and that they would actually take the results seriously and honestly, but they did. So one giant step for the UK, and we're going to, I think in a good decade or so, we're just going to have the old school Europe of small countries clamoring to their culture and pretty much not liking each other, which is, okay. From a personal perspective, as long as I can do well and I don't have too much stress, I don't fucking care. I don't care about a big European superstate. I don't care about nationalism. I don't even really care about, my Hungarian heritage. I mean, apart from the fact that I prefer to be in Europe because there's just certain aspects of the culture that I prefer the United States, it's just a matter of practicality for me. So I just try to make do with the tools I have. I guess I can be fortunate that I do have Hungarian citizenship in addition to American citizenship. And I think it's going to be really, really interesting times we're living in the future. But there will be a lot of chaos inevitably as well. Unless, of course, and here's an alternate thought, the powers that be in British politics reject this majority vote. But I don't think so, because Cameron has resigned officially. He made a decent speech. It was pretty humbling, and I chose the course I chose. I lost. I'm sort of bowing out. Fair enough. He made a mistake, and he sort of admitted to it. And I mean, one thing I don't agree with is that relations with the rest of Europe are going to be, really great or anything like that. Fact of the matter is, I mean, the UK can do plenty of trade with countries outside of Europe. They made that point. And the British have never really liked Europeans and vice versa. So, I mean, at least we're going to go back to the status quo on some level. But as I said, the real problems, the serious problems, the violence, the third worlders, the Muslims, that's not going to go away by leaving Brexit. Although I suppose there might be some benefit in being able to make your own laws. But that debate, if you even want to call it that, will continue. And as for me, I will be watching carefully. I need to start making my own exit plans now that I'm going to be effectively evicted within a year or so, and think about what my next move is, where I'm going to go, etc. I don't plan on discontinuing this channel or anything like that. It is my livelihood to a large extent. So no, that's not an option. So I'm just going to think about my options, in particular, since I have about a year to see where it goes with other referendums, because if the European Union maintains some semblance outside of the UK, and I have no interest in living in the UK, the only thing I like about it is the weather, then I'll have more options than, say, just going to Hungary. And if not, I'll go back to Hungary. And worst case scenario, I'll go back to the Far East to work for a couple of years and make some good money. We'll see. We don't know what's going to happen. I had no idea this was going to happen to me, and we didn't know what the result of Brexit was going to be. In fact, Nigel Farage thought, in fact, that they voted to stay. Much, I suppose, to his surprise, his positive surprise, he found out otherwise. But truly interesting times we're living in, and beyond that, I don't really have much to say. So everyone take care, and thanks for tuning in. Those are my thoughts. On a geopolitical level, favor Brexit, favor the dissolution of the EU. On a personal level, it is shit for my interests. But hey, sometimes you got to look past your interests, right? Everyone take care, and thanks for watching. And if I'm still alive next time, I'll check you out. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.